On this edition of the Fifth Estate, breaking news out of Henry County, where a nationwide Amber Alert has been issued for a young girl. Tranquility shatters in a small Virginia town when a 12-year-old goes missing.
No, honestly, did not know we would recover her alive.
The young girl's abductor was a member of an online hate group.
I was 11 when we met on Instagram, and then we eventually moved to Discord.
The popular platform with private chat rooms where experts say predators hide.
Discord stands out for the cross-fertilization of racist, misogynistic, and anti-Semitic material.
The dark corners online where underage victims are being lured and groomed at alarming rates.
We believe that's probably only the tip of the iceberg.
And where extremists plot real-world acts of violence.
She said the attack was partially live streamed.
What are authorities doing?
Oftentimes, those extremists don't come to the attention of law enforcement until it's too late.
And who is protecting the children?
You have blood on your hands. We should be worried for our children.
I'm Joanna Rumiliotis. This is the Fifth Estate.
If you live in Canada and work any kind of hard labor job, construction, oil, mining, landscaping, etc., this video could
Henry County is a typical county here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We're about 384 square miles. A mostly rural community. I would classify Henry County as being a very safe location. We don't.
Henry County is a safe location for those that are not melanated. Be specific.
Typically see those kind of crimes here in a rural community like Henry County.
Lies.
In February 2021, 12-year-old Allie Broadway was abducted from her home in Virginia by 21-year-old Caleb Merritt. He was a member of a hate group targeting minors in the U.S. and Canada. She had met him online a few months before.
I've always been a little bit more reserved than some people, and I've always been told that I was more mature for my age. Before I met Caleb, my mental health was a sensitive topic.
I embraced Allie. She would go to school and they'd make fun of her because she didn't have a mom and daddy.
I didn't want to be here.
Allie used to self-harm and had tried to kill herself before. She says she was suicidal when she met Merritt on social media.
I was 11 when we met on Instagram. I met him through these internet challenges that we're going through. The first challenge that he gave me was to carve his name into my thigh with a razor. When I sent him a picture.
That's very indicative of the Daddy's Girls cult. It can also be found in my familial structure as to things Bonnie would do and is doing on app that she would do in my family to myself, with like cut your hair off, cut my son's hair off, my daughter's, tattoos as it relates to, certain verbiage of leaders, well, not leadership, but more dictatorship, and overseer.
Sure, and then he was like, okay, I can get this person listening. And I feel like that's where the whole thing just kind of started.
A dark connection between an adult and a troubled child became even more twisted. Mary groomed her by making her feel special.
My daughter and my son, they were groomed around when my daughter was about 5 years old, starting when my daughter was about 5 years old. I can track it back to that time era. And I can also track back via before that as it relates to targeting persons that would be involved in my life and in the creation of my children. And when you have someone in your family that, especially like someone in the family that hasn't been around your children, but then all of a sudden the love bombing, the overwhelming love bombing, and then when you have persons like myself, I didn't grow up with my dad, so you always have that longing for your father, your dad, and then there's a dynamic there which was manipulated as well. So when you have small children, and me as a mother not knowing what was happening, but my children only receiving the love portion of it, but also the slow manipulation, the slow grooming, the slow trafficking, the slow insertion of sexuality, sex, and not a healthy way, and I'm gonna test you out way, and that's what she did to me.
I have
And that's why even like on my TikTok page, you'll see that letter, and a partial of that letter she wrote, or she didn't write, type, but then sign. Um, she admits it because she never thought in a million years. I didn't know either, but she never thought in a million years. One, would I have those letters still? Or two, that they could be used and they will be used against her because she's a groomer, she's a trafficker, and she uses the centering of victimization, and she'll say things. She targets fear. She's targeting fear in my children right now. And it's up to them to understand that the only power that she has over you and your life is you being fearful. Because Bonnie Lou, you know motherfucking well, this ain't the other side of the border, first of all. Second of all, if anything happens to my kids, what did I tell you? What have I told you about if anything happens to my children? Okay. You might have not had kids out of love, but I had children out of love. Now, I know that my son's father was sent in, but we still loved each other. Them babies were made out of love, okay? Just because you had a plot and an agenda for some weirdo fuck shit that y'all got involved in up there, that's not my babies, okay? And no matter how much you have manipulated and coerced and groomed and trafficked, let me tell you something, ho, okay? You're going to be seen in court. And let me just tell my children something. You have a plethora of data, okay? I mean, a plethora of data from your grandmother. Data is power. She wants you to believe that all this will happen to you because you plotted and you did all this against me, you did all of that against me. Okay, we will get to us. That data is power. That's what you need to know. Yes, stay. Give me my space. But that data is power. I need you to sit down and marinate and understand what is happening because only your ego will keep you in your way. Now, Bonnie, regardless of what my children decide to do, God ordained me for motherhood, huh? Okay, just because you didn't take the gift and, nurture the gift and love the gift and all that, okay? You didn't do that. That's a you issue. See, my babies were vessels from love. They were nurtured. They were loved. They still are loved. They were learnt up. So you get your claws in them and you think that you putting them out there and saying whatever you want to say, because I swear I said 3 years ago you could line up my whole fucking family. You could put my ass for eagle on this motherfucking app. I do not care. I will do anything for my babies. Something you also don't know anything about. So if you want to bring full context about anything that you had your claws sinking in, my children, to have them do to manipulate against me, oh, you got me all the way fucked up. Bring whatever you want to bring, Bonnie. I said this 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. I'm going to say it again. Mariah and Ray, you have a plethora of data. Do you understand that you will be able to use because your grandmother groomed and trafficked you? That is nothing to be ashamed of. I'm not ashamed of you, neither are none of the community out here ashamed of you. You have work to do. You have to fight. If you choose to fight, then, you know, The universe will conspire as it always does. If you don't, you will end up like Bonnie. Because that's how you're sounding, that's how you're looking, and that's not what I learned up. That's not what I raised. I know what my babies sound like, Bonnie. I know what my babies, who they are. And I know when they got claws in them and being manipulated. No matter how much you have manipulated life around my family because of your fucking obsession, because you couldn't do it. You couldn't seal a deal with getting a citizenship. You couldn't seal a deal with a family. You couldn't do anything, but all you do is corrupt, 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 corrupt. Bitch, I'm not scared of you. Do you understand? You are fucking with my kids, my gifts. Now, no matter what you think and trying to divide, I trust that they are going to tap in and they are going to sit quietly and learn up. And if not, you will look like Bonnie or you will look like Billy. Learn.
I fell in love because he talked to me and he gave me the attention that I kind of needed. I was in a time period in my life where I didn't feel like I was worth much, and nothing really that I found to help really helped.
Did he encourage you to hurt yourself?
Yes,
You're here though.
many times on multiple occasions, he would tell me to cut different words or just lines in general, just go as deep as I could. And eventually, I managed to get a hold of a box cutter, and that allowed me to go even deeper.
Imagine bringing your side project to life just by thinking
I'm gonna let these commercials run. Y'all remember when Emery Pruitt, when she got the tattoo? This is just signifying of what Bonnie does. The same thing she's done in my family's life. And this is why this is very important because I'm 53. My children are in their early 30s. My daughter was 5 when I can clock back that my mother and my father were starting to groom them. Okay? It's sick what they've done. And it's sick what they're continuing to do. But I want you to, you got to be contractually strategic. Also, because you can make anything work for you.
The manipulation escalated in shadowy online corners.
We eventually moved to Discord because he felt like it was a better place for us to message, which I later figured out was because he thought he'd get away with more on it.
And they do.
Merritt invited Ali into a private chat room on Discord. Discord started out as a gaming app, but experts say its private chat rooms have turned it into a preferred platform for predators, including an emerging network of extremists who deliberately target vulnerable kids. Merritt was a member of one of those groups called CVLT, or Cult.
Just said it was like a community of people that would get together and share similar interests and ideas and hobbies. Racist and homophobic and anti-Semitic values. He convinced me to be racist, to hate anyone that wasn't white. And
She's wearing a pink
I
t-shirt.
because I realized his lies. It made me feel like I was important and I had worth because of the sole fact that I wasn't those things. It was based off of this one. It used to be a cult, Order of Nine Angles. So his username had O9A in it.
The O9A, or the Order of Nine Angles, originated in the United Kingdom in the 1970s as a satanic anarchist movement committed to destroying society through acts of violence and terrorism. Experts say the O9A has influenced several neo-Nazi groups who have also migrated and mushroomed online.
It's not a new thing. The Order of Nine Angles, historically, its roots are deeply vowed into anti-Semitism when it started back in the 70s. O9A is a decentralized thing because it's an ideology. It's not there's not like a headquarters where it is.
CVLT, or Cult, the group Merritt belonged to, is one of several O9A-inspired hate groups. Their alleged members are considered especially depraved because they specifically target minors.
They are interconnected in such a way that the older style of white supremacists or neo-Nazis, that's been borrowed and then reborn in these groups. Anti-Semitism,
These groups are also inclusive on TikTok.
Anti-Islam,
Agencies.
anti-LGBTQ. This stuff is all just living all together there, which is often violent far-right movements.
How concerning is this kind of group?
Because of the populations that it's targeting, i.e. youth or other vulnerable populations, it, for me, is a dangerous situation.
It's beyond a dangerous situation. It's crimes against humanity. And that's what Anthony Highland and Sharita and Bonnie and, a plethora of other folks that have participated in, the co-conspiracy and conspiracy to commit these murders. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of murders. Even targets on my family, myself, other families, and just food for thought. If they will grooming and manipulation to the point where those that are targeted with mental states, I can listen. I can hear, excuse me, not listen. I can listen because it's still energy to me. Bonnie, you don't have a connection to me. That's how come you never, nothing. You don't have a soul. You sold it. I mean, the fuck, it's, and you, for a long, long time, have wanted the same thing for my family. You have quite a control on my brother's family. But for me, you've never had the control that you quite wanted on me and my family. And when you use an opportune time, to manipulate people, manipulate situation, manipulate behind the scenes as it relates to, government positions and stuff, moving stuff around, all kinds of things. Lady, you are in a world of trouble. And, when you get to this magnitude of what you've done, there's not a court of law on the fucking land that will convict my children of anything. So while you're peeping and trying to drop whatever the fuck you're dropping in their ear, because you've done this year after year after year with those that are vulnerable on and off this app, they have evidence against you. Everybody has evidence against you. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what you do. And thank the Lord for divine intervention, right? Because I ain't never had to be ran through, Bonnie. I've always had a brain. That's why you kept your life a secret, because you're ran through with no brain. That's what bothers you about me. And that's what bothers you about my children, because they're very intellectual. They're very intelligent. And you can't stand that. Now, mind you, they have a contractual obligation. How they move now will determine light and dark. I don't believe for 1 second, Bonnie, that you have the power over my children. And I don't believe for 1 second that the spirits and the community or the energy that is being put out into this world is going to allow them to be left behind. It's game over, huh?
Folks are willing to victimize and recruit and radicalize and do whatever to minors. It goes from 0 to the max like very, very quickly. 2025 is in full swing, and despite your best intentions, your inbox already looks like dead.
Despite its links to the far right, 090's offshoots are not whites-only movements. Court documents obtained by the Fifth Estate after the recent arrests of 2 alleged members reveal horrific violence. 18-year-old Kalana Limkit from Hawaii was arrested last December for being part of an 098 offshoot called 764, as well as the founder of the splinter group Cultist, and prosecutors say promotes child pornography, as well as child exploitation and self-harm of minors. 22-year-old Angel Almeida of New York is another alleged 764 member who police say exploited multiple minor victims and held one of them at gunpoint while posing for a photograph and convinced her to cut her neck so that he could drink her blood. Both men have pleaded not guilty and are awaiting trial.
See, the difference between this storyline and what we've been seeing on TikTok, as far as like messy talk or drag talk or whatever what chapter you came in on, is that this, you got to think like this is also actual events, but the perception of power is different. In the past, Bonnie and those, you know, dirty ass cops and officials, government officials, relied heavily on just that, the wellness checks, the person of interest, hold for personal interest. Not really an arrest though, like with Angela Van Dusen, remember? And then there's, the abductions and all that. Now, with Rashia and Top Shelf or Top Flight or Top Informant, 'cause that's what's happening. I don't care what anybody says about what anybody says because everybody knows and everybody knows how informants go. And they put it back out here and yeah. So they're gonna, they're snitching to get a lesser sentence. Uh so yeah, that's how that goes. They're gonna round them up. But we gotta get to you, Bonnie. We gotta get to you. So just get your wine.
Certainly, this type of predator is probably one of the most dangerous out there if they're causing physical harm as well as being able to manipulate and create emotional trauma to that youth.
In Winnipeg, the Canadian Centre for Child Protection's tip line has seen a disturbing rise in cases on Discord from 140 reports in 2021.
How many do you think they're gonna connect to you, Bonnie? Just because they can, because that's what they do. I'm
To
helping.
more than 500 last year.
We believe that's probably only the tip of the iceberg because we know there are lots of situations out there that are not being reported.
Stephen Sauer recently met with the RCMP. It's not clear if the same hate groups are behind the Discord cases, but there are disturbing similarities.
We've seen cases where individuals who connect with youth on Discord are encouraging them to self-harm, are encouraging them to commit suicide, and then record the cutting of themselves so that the offender can then use that recording to further manipulate and extort the child.
See, they're not even going into using it for content, which is huge business right now. Well, has been. That's why I'm here. That's why a lot of other, persons on TikTok and other platforms are here because their families were touched or they were touched. I don't mean it doesn't have to be physical. Far too often we talk most of the physical and not the mental long-term effects of, abuse. And I think, for myself, I just cannot rely. The white system of resources and even listening to this is not a beneficial resource for specifically my community. So just to go a little drill further into that is white people never ever in the history of everdom studied black people for the benefit of black people. And if there's a white person out there that is says otherwise, you're a hypocrite. Never. So when you think about things in an aspect like that, white people, what do you expect the mindset of black people to be? Because again, yeah, black people were racist. Yeah, black people could be racist. There would be no white people based upon your history. You remember what you were told, what you saw, what you see. So are black people racist? No, you're just offended.
They will ask them to engage in sexual acts that are extreme in some ways, and they are using it to blackmail the child and extort them to create further imagery in this.
See, that's what you're doing, Bonnie. You say things, do things, because you did it to me. You tried to anyway. But when you have developed your, you fine tune your scheme, your toxicity, your negativity, your lack of anything. Because now you look at the person. Because if you look at me, like you've looked at me and you've manipulated my children because you groomed them, okay? You groomed them from a very young age. And you groomed many people around and brainwashed many people around my children and manipulated marriages. You've manipulated children in those marriages. You've done a lot, lady. And I'm going to tell you right now, okay? Because when your ass sit up there, because my ex-husband, my son's father, he'll tell on you. Ain't shit you can do, because if anything happens to him, I will find out. And, they'll know about you in the church and all that, because they were targeted. Now, mind you, they got greedy. I know, but at the same time, they were targeted. Their livelihood, their life, or else. That's what you've done all your life. No, since you got that first initiation, and then you couldn't pull off your own motherfucking contract. Now you and Anthony and them got a million dollar contract that you have, rationed out to people, and now you're trying to dictate to people, nobody's above the program. No, you're not a fucking above the program. That's what you're not. You're not above the milli. Ain't no motherfucking body out here got a milli. Except your family. And now you want the people on the front line, the presentation, to take the fall? Feds are looking at Operation International, Interpol, the NCIS, and every other fucking agency who's, hey, watching me right now. Crimes against humanity.
That's really kind of the crux of what we're seeing on Discord.
Then there's the added horror of not knowing who the predators are hiding behind the screen.
My daughter and I
Someone says, no, you're not above the program. Okay. Since I don't know about the program, go ahead and send me that program outline. Any information you want me to look over to offthegrid.main@gmail.com. That's offthegrid.main, MAIN, @gmail.com. And I will look over your program. But I ain't never been a part of nobody's fucking program. Ain't never going to be a part of a program. Never needed a program. If you need a program to get ran through, child, I can't help you.
relationship we have that only her and I have all of a sudden flipped. I didn't know she wasn't.
Hey, go get your main page.
Somebody else. Tried my daughter.
We are not disclosing who this Canadian father is in order to protect his 15-year-old daughter's identity.
End of June, that's when I saw the cuts on her arm. The following week, she carved the name Colt.
You remember now, Daddy's Girls Colt cutting, right? Now, E.J. Dixon, Rolling Stones magazine, bring your ass to the front because you wrote a story that was false and you knew it was false. And I know you knew it was false because who was my mother with your family member? I know. So you better get to thinking about retracted shit.
In one of her links, when I spoke to her, she said I was part of a cult and I was overwhelmed by cult. But I wanted to just receive and hear information.
His daughter has struggled with her mental health for years. She was vulnerable, and she was getting worse.
The end of August, I got a call saying my daughter had tried to kill herself. And then everything after that was just every day felt like a week. It was so much information to try and take in and understand.
This is Pod 5.
Side note, look, I repotted her. Doesn't she look beautiful? I put the other one in too, so I kind of loosened her up and she's pretty. We're gonna see. We're gonna see.
Adjusting temperature, elevation, and sound while you sleep. Built to give you all night comfort with an adapt. Did you have any idea that she was chatting with someone older? Well, no. She told me he was 14, like something of that nature.
Now, mind you, we have to think back also to caramel wax and apple sticks and the whole situation with Safi's daughters, right, Bonnie? Because you're a trafficker. You're a trafficker. You're involved in some political shit. You are.
Told me a fake age.
I mean, since you
I
know.
thought it was just
Oh,
talking. She wouldn't stay out.
I want to give some background real quick. See, Bonnie, let me. If my kids are watching, this is. See, when I got out of Bon Air, I was out on independent living, right? And Bonnie had set me up with some roommates, and they ended up being police officers. Now, instantly, my energy was, but she did that on purpose to put me in an environment that was uncomfortable, right? So here I am, just getting out of Bon Air that she put me in. This is how much control that she had in my she's always had in my life, even when I didn't even know she was around. So that didn't work out. And when that didn't work out, they actually ended up putting me out. And I was a minor when they put me out. I was 17. The courts had emancipated me. That's what they say. We're emancipating you. And that's when they put me in the independent living. And then I got into this apartment on in Alexandria. And from that apartment, they put me out. And that's when I met, but this was also orchestrated, now that I know. They put me out, I had nowhere to go. And I had met my daughter's father. No, I had met a girl, and her father was in the military. And she lived in this high rise across from this cheesesteak place in this beauty salon that I used to go to. And so when me and her would just hang out. I would go over her house, and that's when I think back. Her father was in the military, and so we ended up meeting my daughter's father and his cousin. Now his cousin was in the military, and it was his cousin that was supposed to talk to me, and we did start talking. But before we even met them, because she met them first, so so there's the connection right there. She was sent in, and my daughter's uncle cousin was sent in. Okay, and she was supposed to go for my daughter's father, but she ended up liking. Wait, was it the other way? No, I ended up. We ended up, like fuck that shit. We ended up switching. We hadn't been with them. We were just talking about it before we linked up for the date because we were gonna meet at the cheesesteak place. But we wanted to make sure, like, girl, I want to be like, we was talking about, because she said we met two guys, but I don't even think that she knew now that I think about it. But I know he did. I know her father's cousin did. I do know that for sure because of the dynamic, which I'm not going to get into because that will be in court. Because although you try to clean up your loose end, Bonnie, with my daughter's father and her grandmother, there's still other family members, and they're gonna testify against your dumb ass. So when we went and ended up meeting them, because we chilled for the day, but we were just all together as a group, kind of like feeling each other out. This was back in the day, y'all. But we ended up switching. We all had this conversation, and my daughter's father liked me, and she liked his cousin, and so it was like whatever. But now, when I think back on it, I can see now how it was constructed. But me and my daughter's father was supposed to never be together. That was that wasn't the plan, and so it's indicative. I like to say indicative of divine intervention. Because if that had not happened, if that singular event of change of mind had not happened, we would not be here today. It would be worse, if you can imagine. And I know it's hard to imagine, but it would be. And the fact that we are all, because I said this about a month ago on my TikTok live, we are all exactly where we're supposed to be. Now, it's up to you, because I know exactly the direction I'm headed. And I know exactly what I'm purposed to do. And I absolutely would love for those that I've vesseled, loved into this world. That is up to you. You have it in you. Your star seeds. She knows it. But if you allow her to continue, you will be just like her. Or you'll be just like Billy. You have to tap in. You got to get truthful with each other and truthful with yourself. I know the truth. You need to detox. You need to listen. You have a community around you. You have a tool in front of you, and you have a contract. Not on your life, because I'll flip this whole motherfucker over, Bonnie. But you have done things that you have to be accountable for. I'm always watching. That's how I know. I'm supposed to. I'm your mother, not your best friend. Your protector, purposed by God, not you.
Oh, right there. On those calls, Ali says Merritt pressured her to send sexually explicit material of herself and to keep cutting.
He would have me take different videos of myself. He would have me take pictures of myself.
When he told you to cut yourself to prove that you loved him, what went through your mind?
I knew it hurt, and I knew that it at some point just became addicting. Every time I did something wrong, cut. Every time.
Now, this isn't the same as, a familial, like a mother grooming a child. But again, if you look on my TikTok page, Official Tanya Michelle, you'll see a portion of a letter. You want to touch me in my sleep, and I would lash out because it's not right. It's not something that, it's not right. Now, when you have a lot of people around you, um, and because of the way the trauma that I endured, I I've always been an introvert. I'm extroverted when I'm around my people, but I'm an introvert because I'm very cautious and aware of my surroundings. But when you come around, like when you're around a lot of family, both my children have big families, and so when there is a pool of manipulated targets, all being pulled in different directions. You have to think about like those what we endured on TikTok. right? We just remember those groups we were, all being pulled by different voices, different characters, different instances, organized chaos. And then you add a trusted familial element to it. And then you add in the shame factor. And then you add in all these other things that you've endured in traumas. And then you don't know, you add in that you don't know how to do this, how to do that, because you have someone that is instilling fear, triggers. Bonnie, you are a deplorable person. I don't know. I don't think you're a person though. And, you know, we can see over the last at least 5 years. I can see longer than that, but I'm just trying to keep it in context with those who have been on the app of how very vile. You tell people to cut their hair because that's what you went through when you were humiliated. Those are your stories. And you aren't able to tell your stories via your book. So you have decided to do this. You think that if you divide me and my children and you instill or you try to instill, you see what you're doing, you see what you're causing, but you're not causing it with me. So you're not getting the satisfaction you want. That's why you're getting people to cut their hair off. Well, everybody has so much data right now on you, Bonnie. My children have so much data on you. So much data, so many money transfers, so much evidence. And there's nothing you can do. You can't tell them that they're going to jail. No, you're going to jail. You groomed and trafficked them. Do you think for 1 minute that when federal authorities sit down and go over the numbers and go over, how you had me groomed and then it goes through the family, who do you think is going to be on your side? I know. I know you. Oh, never mind.
Every time I mess up, every time I make a mistake, twice. It was just an ongoing cycle. He would say, if you don't do this, then you don't love me. And that hurt because I was like, I do love you. And that,
See, I will always love you. No, you won't. Keep that. Love like that. That's why there's so much intergenerational trauma. Like I said, Bonnie, it ends. Ending this cycle. You're not above the program that you couldn't even fulfill a contract on. Your little subcontract. Well, we're gonna see about
that's why I am doing these things. And I am doing these things to myself. I wish I wouldn't have, and I wish I would have saw the red flags right away, but I didn't. I just wanted someone to love me.
We see things like individuals who are love bombing, so that means that they're flattering, they're often like talking all the time about loving the child and manipulating them into believing that they're in a relationship with the offender. They then use that as a control tactic as well. I'll never be able to chat with you again if you tell anyone about this.
One day, I started talking to him, and he was like, "Okay, I need to get out of Texas." He used the excuse that the police had found something back home, and they had called him to the station to talk to him about it. So I was like, okay, I have this spot in my woods. I guess you could bring a tent or something and then just come stay there. The next day or a day after that, he started his venture to Virginia.
It's getting cold already. It's just fall.
Had alerted authorities. Police were worried.
We received a complaint from the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force in Bedford, Virginia. They had received information from the Discord application that two users on the Discord app were communicating, one being a minor female, one being an adult affiliated with the CBOT Cold Crew.
Now, mind you, keep in mind that each one of these first family cult subgroups, like this one, are all interconnected. All these murders are interconnected, right? And so it's just a separate part of TikTok, a separate part of Instagram, another part, it's all interconnected. There's a lot of money, Bonnie. Mm. I imagine how much you got in stocks and bonds, offshore accounts, all kinds of shit. You ain't going nowhere. Whoa, you really ain't going.
In this
Wow.
case, she was physically safe through the barriers of the internet, but that line got crossed once he actually drove here.
Approximately 20-hour drive from Texas to our jurisdiction here in Virginia.
We were deeply concerned about what was happening to her. We knew he.
We live in strange.
We live in strange times for sure. And guess how we got here?
There from Texas that showed he had a high level of commitment, and we didn't ultimately know what his goal was for her.
You know what's fine? Like this right here, these non-black or non-melanated folk having these conversations, and they have the white girl up here, you know, which is true too. But the amount of black children and melanated children, but specifically black children, because a lot of children from DC is sent to Bon Air, Virginia corrections, juvenile corrections like Beaumont for a specific reason. They go missing for a specific reason. See, Bonnie, did you know that, black children's organs are top dollar on the dark web? Did you know that? Did you know that a little girl's liver is sold for $1 million on the dark web? Did you know a little black boy's heart is worth $20 million on the dark web? Or, other organs? Do you know why they, because, the elites, because back in slavery, they just pull the teeth out and give them to the white folk. Now they have the dark web, but they need to have a portal. You know what's a portal? Argus House is a portal. Argus House. hmm Argus House is a portal to, select specific girls or boys back then, because they were Beaumont and Bon Air. Because Bon Air was all girls, but they had male COs. Then Beaumont, we used to have to go to social over there. But Virginia, this right here, these folk right here, these backwood folk right here, oh, they know a whole lot.
When we come back, Allie wasn't the only one in danger. The race to find her and a Canadian father's shocking discovery.
Virginia to Canada, huh?
We are continuing to follow breaking news tonight of an Amber Alert.
A young girl is thought to be in extreme danger. 21-year-old Caleb Merritt has abducted 12-year-old Allie Broadway.
See, 21-year-old is putting on the front, the presentation. That's not the operation, that's the fall person. The operation could be like Bonnie. And we're going to get into talking about, women in trafficking and, madams. Except not really madams, because Bonnie, a madam, you know, was a term that was coined for, the demure, the classiness of the adult entertainment sectors of, escorting. If women, who, didn't feel safe or comfortable with pimps, they would have a madam, a woman that would be their protector. Well, she would have, bodyguards or protectors, security of men, but she would be the women's protectors, a madam. Like, yes, ma'am. Yes, madam. You're not a madam. You're just a whore.
He had started that venture that night. And then he just kept going until he got there. I was scared. I didn't know what was about to happen. So once he got here, he
I ran through
primarily
him.
kept his car parked at Bojangles. The Bojangles is probably maybe a mile from our house. He knew where I lived. He had set up a tent here into the woods.
Barrett traveled to Virginia earlier this month and set up a camp in the woods behind Broadway's home.
Through the contextual information from the messages that were provided from the Discord, I was able to find he had come from Texas and drove to meet up with the female juvenile.
To me, it shows a high level of desperation. He's willing to drive across most of the United States to get here to interact with a 12-year-old girl. And ultimately, that's with ill intentions, so that's definitely concerning to us once it's brought to our attention.
See, this setup guy.
In early February 2021, 21-year-old Caleb Merritt met 12-year-old Allie Broadway in person for the first time after months of grooming her on Discord.
I would bring him food because I didn't want him to starve. I wanted to take care of him.
How did you feel in his company? Did you feel scared?
Horrified. I was also brainwashed into thinking that this man cared about me and my safety. He would try to start sexual things with me several times. I am about 100 pounds and 4'11". He did rape me while he was back there. And I had no control over it because he was a lot taller than me. I was scared to death. I remember crying through every bit of it.
If you're a business owner who's thought about exiting, but you're not,
bawling my eyes out when I would get home that night because I didn't know what happened to me.
We found out that he was using Planet Fitness for their bathroom facilities to take showers and brush his teeth.
Police pinned Merritt using his phone signal and made him invisible.
I met up with Caleb Merritt. Juvenile's age was brought up during the conversation. He acknowledged that he knew her age and didn't appear to deter him from any of his activity. So that obviously brought up a red flag in my mind. During the interview, enough detail was given to allow me to lawfully seize his electronic devices that he had on his person.
At that point in the investigation, you couldn't arrest him.
We did not, unfortunately, at this point, he had just not crossed that barrier where he committed any crime that's defined by the Code of Virginia.
After they questioned Merritt, officers decided to check on Allie.
The night before I was taken, I was sitting at the house. He texted me, I would say at about 6:30 that night, and was like, hide your phone. The police just came and took one of my phones. They're on their way to your house. We heard a knocking on the door, and the police showed up.
When a policeman come here, wanted her cell phone, that was the beginning of it. Police took Allie's phone.
I still had my school iPad. He still had his flip phone that he used to message me prior. He was like, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here fast. You need to come.
Where you gonna go, Bonnie? Huh? Where you gonna go? You see, right now you're probably trying to, convince persons, that they're in trouble or they're gonna get hurt or any of that. I want to say, don't be fearful out there. Call her fucking bluff. You got more power than you think you do. More data than enough. And if you were groomed or trafficked by it, Bonnie, ain't no court anywhere gonna do anything And if anybody gets locked up or if anybody gets hurt, guess who's going to get in trouble? Bonnie. She knows that. You do know that. You do know that. I know you know that. Yeah, you do. And if anything happens, this video is going to stay on public. This video is going to stay on public. And there are, I previously showed where is it? I'm going to show it again on this live. I'm going to let this play, but I'm going to get the officer's information. Because if anything happens, Bonnie, this video will be here with the officer's information. There's a case that has been recorded. There's also been recorded is those officers that came here for that wellness call to a woman. You sent two males. Hmm. Anyway, that's recorded. So let me get that.
He had pulled his car, like drove past, pulled up his car, and I threw my stuff in and got in the passenger seat.
Where's my purse at?
In British Columbia, a father's horrifying journey continued after his daughter was found to kill herself. Like the people whose parent belongs to, police say 764 and his followers are extremists who target minors online.
I think about my own kids. I think that potential is way too much because one person can also be sitting there, talking to 20 other people at a time, radicalizing them or getting them to self harm or those types of things. It's kind of the Wild West out there sometimes.
What did I do with them?
Has 1.3 million followers on TikTok and uses her platform to educate people about online dating.
Who is that?
What she uncovered about 764
Who is that?
is terrifying.
This video is for educational purposes.
Girl.
A user reached out and asked for support, and I uncovered a
Cleaned up now. I
self-help
would
group
have
called 764. 764 function on applications like Discord.
Thing in the back is
They are self-proclaimed cults that are attached to government-known hate groups and terrorist organizations across several different countries. On Reddit, there was an astronomical number of testimonies from
Meanwhile, so is she.
adults over the generations who have survived this cult. The perpetrators being anyone hiding behind anonymity on the internet inside these Discord chats. It truly is a helpless vicious cycle that these children find themselves in. It is so important that this information is out there. These children are real. They are experiencing real harm. When I elevated this story, like others, I got a rapid response from the public and the call to action.
See, so is she. Let me show you a picture. Look. See how it works? She's color coded.
And was encouraging the public to report it to the FBI. The young lady in the hospital because of one of them.
John
A
Lee
few weeks later,
Paris.
the FBI
Sean
released an
Carberry.
extraordinary public service announcement warning groups like 764 and Cult target minors between 8 and 17 years old, especially LGBTQ plus youth, racial minorities, and those who struggle with mental health issues such as depression and suicidal ideation. The FBI says the group's end goal is forcing minors into committing suicide on live stream for their own entertainment or their own sense of fame.
This is new Hollywood.
The thing that I find unique and particularly disturbing with these groups is the level of violence, just the the propensity to act violently in the real world. These are all things that make this scandal to me.
Matt Richardson works with the U.S.-based anti-human trafficking intelligence initiative. So if you search somebody detained by the FBI, what can you show up?
Sure, let's pick one CBLT or single number. Very quickly, a Roblox.
Roblox is a gaming.
Yes, Roblox
Ooh.
is a game that's popular for many age groups. So what they're doing here is saying, hey, this is a Roblox community.
So this is a luring tactic.
Yeah, this would appear to be a luring tactic or potentially an example of a honeypot. People will create servers for a number of topics that eating disorders, poor self-esteem, poor body image, among others. It attracts the attention of people that are vulnerable. Discord's a pretty user-friendly platform. It's easy to create accounts, multiple accounts if one wishes, create and delete servers. The other factor would be the layer of anonymity of
15 minutes left.
Because when we create channels on Discord, we can make the private or public if they're made private, so predators can avoid detection by police or even concerned parents.
And then.
I still didn't know what was going on.
If you want to build an app and have no idea how to code or where to start, check out ThinkPeace.
I thought she was in her bedroom. She wasn't in there. Then that's when I really got concerned, and I couldn't believe, honestly, that she had left. So I called one of the social workers that we had, and she said, "Well, just go ahead and call 911." 911 emergency. I think I came up here last night and took her telephone and her tablet, and told me not to let her leave. She has left without me knowing it. Police had just finished searching Mare's phone when the 911 call came in.
About the same time that the child pornography was found on his phone, the juvenile was reported missing.
My gut feel was telling me that he was going to make an attempt to get back to Texas. But there's a lot of things that can occur between Virginia and Texas, you know.
We begin tonight with an Amber Alert.
A young girl is thought to be in extreme danger. 21-year-old Caleb Merritt has abducted 12-year-old Allie Broadway.
When the Amber Alert went out.
See, that how the cult works is they'll tell him, you have to go do this or else. And they target persons, not just those who have mental, like diagnosed mental states, but also those who are going through vulnerable states, that would affect their mental. Back when everything was going on with me, remember mine happened during Thanksgiving time, time when, family's supposed to be around and shit, hold on. This phone. Oh, y'all recording me. That's why I said so they target people during those times, during their birthday, during Christmas, during specific holidays. They'll keep track of anniversaries of deaths. So if there's a time that's coming around for someone who passed away, they will target you during that time. So to fuck with your mental even more. The goal is to fuck with your mental to the point where you question yourself and then some. If it gets to the point when you are, so that they know they have so much control on you, so much fear instilled in you that you can do anything. And that's why those that are targeted with diagnosed mental states, much like the Mommy of Six person that got, the murderer of Mommy of Six. And that's why they also like targeting Kelsey. And remember when they tried to get Kelsey committed. Now, it wasn't those that we were presented that was trying to get Kelsey committed. It was those in operation that was trying to get Kelsey committed. They were just using the presentation of those persons on the front line, right? So, Bonnie, focus.
We were concerned with this national media
And
attention.
Anthony, Millie, what the fuck? You aren't above the program.
Is he going to panic and kill her to get rid of her?
I didn't know it was about to happen, and I was fearing for my life. We drove for a little bit, just drove anywhere we could.
We knew she was in extreme danger. So it made that case absolute All hands on deck and top priority for sheriff's office.
Liar. I bet you I could pull his shit. They just be lying. They're liars.
Come back. The race to find
Especially
Ali,
down in
Tanya,
VA.
and the devastating harm when
He looked
online
like,
extremists cross over into the real
don't let
world.
me find out. Ancestors, I know it's a lot already, please. I know I said it. Because he looks old enough. I mean, you can get his name to find out if he's that blonde hair. Lordy.
And how old is your granddaughter? 12. She may be with an 18-year-old. Her name is Allie Broadway. All right, hold on. Okay, what was your last name wearing?
We deal with missing and runaway juveniles regularly. This has additional complexities.
The winter weather advisory in effect for all areas south of US 460.
A major ice storm moved in. The FBI had a tremendous amount of resources that would have been available to us, but they were unable to move them here because the highways were in dangerous travel conditions. Right in the midst of this, we had major power outage. We lost power here at the sheriff's office.
I got on one of those roads that had ice on it. I never got home. I missed a road.
We put a tremendous amount of work into this in a very short period of time. Literally prayed for a successful resolution. It was truly all hands on deck.
We ended up almost at Emporia, then ended up in Henderson, North Carolina. Once we reached Henderson, North Carolina, he stopped in McDonald's, got food. I didn't have any sort of appetite. I was still scared for my life. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I'd ever see my family again. I didn't know if I'd ever be a normal person again after that.
Both the juvenile and Cable Bear were located the next day in Henderson, North Carolina.
Mr. Merritt had entered a business there in that locality and made a phone call, which is ultimately what led us to that location.
When the police found me, I was scared. They just pulled up beside me. And then all of a sudden, a big wad of people come out of a tiny little car with flashlights and guns drawn. I was horrified. I was scared. I just remember them having him roll down the window and them saying, "Get out the car, get out the car." Still to this day, really bright lights in the dark still kind of triggers me.
Let me just say y'all something, okay? They're grooming these kids for content. It's a fucking mess. Now, I'm not going to question her truth, but you're walking in the middle of the woods in the middle of the night to feed a stranger. But when the police pull up, you're scared. And there are stories upon stories, but all the persons involved in this storyline or the presentation of the storyline are color coded. So this is how whiteness will perpetuate it, white people. And that's one side of, the social media platforms. And you see that, it's not black people initiating these contracts or these agencies. So I'm not going to get into any more of this. I wanted to just touch on some things that I had up as it related to exploring sexual grooming and female perpetuated child sexual abuse. Young girls, myself included, we told things when we were growing up, and then we were showed things when we were growing up. And when you have a woman that is, around you and showing you sexual things in a very sneaky way, you don't pick up on those things when you're younger. And it's not until now that I can really reflect back and line it all up of how much grooming Bonnie has done and has continued to do because she's doing it. She's still doing it. So when you have a female person, and then they get leniency, I heard Tea Time talking about this on her platform on TikTok, Tea Time, with Ty, or I am Tea Time, and talking about how men, if they are caught doing certain things, they get more time than women. And it's true. And I'm proof of that because my mom's actions, as you can see, have spanned generations, and has affected my children. Her actions, her toxic grooming, trafficking actions have carried over generation after generation. She has to absolutely have this ownership over persons that, ah, it's so much. So you have family members, aunts, cousins, sisters, mothers that are grooming and trafficking their children, getting them sexually comfortable to have conversations like this young girl did here. And they presented a picture, but not really much evidence. When we really listen to what we just heard, didn't see a damn DM or anything. Sure, they talked about the Discord, but this is the type of content that's being produced. Same thing on TikTok. Same thing in this dynamic that, we're all, I don't want to say all a part of, because that would mean we were, volunteered or consensual. And not all of it's consensual. There's no contract in the world or program in the world. Now I can understand a millie, because if you have $1 million in with a loan shark, you owe that loan shark. Now, if you got a millie from a loan shark and you decide to divvy that shit up, you still owe the loan shark. Sure, you have to collect, but your past history of collection, now that shit is hot. The feds got some of your family, more than two. Local police have about two. I think they just released one. And it's a fucking mess behind the scenes. All families snitching on each other. And Bonnie, you're worried. You're so worried. I can tell how worried you are by how you're manipulating things right now, or trying to. You're not going to be able to do it. And if you can do it, won't be because, no, you're not going to be able to do it. So I don't want to give you any hope or nothing. Um, There are stages I encourage, and I'm not going to go over this because I'm not even going to be here that much longer. I'm going to, because I have things to do. But the 6 stages of grooming adults and teens, spotting the red flags, go check out these article pieces. Tap in, start learning up. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's, but there's also work to do. There's accountability to be had. There's truth within self, and then truth within connectivity of your surroundings. If you're not tapping in to each other, you're tapping out. And if you're tapping out, then you're giving up. How are you giving up on your manifestation? You want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Because if you think you're here in this position because of your plans, then you got God all the way messed up. So, I mean, like I said, I can't come back to toxicity. You have to come towards the light, and truth will set everybody free. And you have data. Data is power. Money is in power, making you believe money is power. Now that's power. And Anthony and Bonnie and Sharita and the rest of them, especially you, Anthony, right? That's why you're over there threatening everybody with this and that. And who are you going to get to pull off a hit for you, Anthony? Who would do that? Who would give up their life for you? Look at you. Look where you're at. You're a black man in Africa for the U.S. military on the World Wide Web, threatening black women. Child, just sit there and shut the fuck up. I told you that. All right. I really wonder sometimes, Bonnie, how much where I would have been. I do wonder that. But then I also think, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And so are my children. And I believe in God. I believe in divine intervention. I believe in miracles. I believe in magic. I believe in love. And so do my children. It's innately in them. They were learnt up with it. No matter how deep your claws in, they're going to find their way from it. As long as they're contractually strategic and they pay attention. There's a community around them, Bonnie. You ain't want community. You wanted to be a dictator. So look in the mirror and dictate how. All right. I'm going to end this live. I'm going to come back on TikTok for a little bit. I just wanted to put that information up because I'm working on some other things. But, you know, I know what's inside what I created. You got to know it too. Tap in.